This has not been the best morning for people of Delhi.
The increasing pollution levels and
government is now planning to take up redevelopment.
Delhi, a city caught between development versus ecological preservation. Are we paving the way for the future or heading towards ecological disaster?
Easy to shift the blame to the parali or the crop burning in Punjab. We don't take the blame on the cars, we just discussed that. Delhi is huge in construction. We just saw the numbers.
Like in New York, you don't need a separate road or something, access like that. Everything is kind of part of the city system.
And my feeling is that the figure for Delhi is around 40-45% take the metro currently. The metro is a huge success. So that's something definitely to be celebrated. Now we have to look at how to expand the reach of the metro and take it even further, like you said, the last mile connectivity.
I would not be comfortable with it. I would not want my family, my daughter who's sitting out somewhere here, or my wife to be walking the road. Have you made your cities safe? Have you made your cities walkable? Is your climate suitable for that?
But obviously, as an architect, as a forum here, I think all of us need to voice that in our public projects with the opportunities you and I have, on how to make a difference by starting some conversations and experiments throughout the city. And I think there is an absolute emergency out here.
We're now setting the stage for the big debate. And this is in a way, is also one of the most awaited sessions, and I'll tell you why. Because we are about to witness a powerful conversation that promises to be both thought-provoking as well as intense. And I think I promised you this earlier, that we're about to rise the intensity levels right away for the next 1 hour. Now, this is where we're all about to confront the critical environmental issues that are truly shaping our country's future.
I thought I should start on a light note. It's a meme that I found yesterday. And it reminded me of an old Ghalib ka sher. Umr bhar Ghalib yahi bhool karta raha, धूल चेहरे पे थी और आईना साफ करता रहा. So I thought this slide sets the tone for the entire evening. That we don't hold the people responsible for what they are doing, but we keep always pointing fingers at everybody else for the problems that we are facing. The issue today that we're dealing with, Delhi pollution. I mean, 1700 AQI, 1400 AQI, these are the figures that I keep hearing, whereas the media says 500 AQI, 300 AQI, but whatever it is, it's impossible to get in to breathe in this city day by day. Just few numbers. 2005, we had about 1.6 million registered cars. In the next 10 years, they went double. In the next 10 years, they went 3.5 times. So today we have more than 4 million registered cars in this city. Just few numbers. The tree cover is reduced literally by 60% when it comes down to the rich areas and the prominent areas of Delhi. The construction, we keep blaming the commercial activities, we keep blaming the private developers, the amount of construction that's happening. But if you look at the real numbers, peripheral townships, they comprise to about 30%, infrastructure expansion another 40%. The largest given to government housing, which has taken over in terms of all sorts of construction and development activities in the last 10 years. While the metro was an amazing thing for the city in the last 20 years, which started with just a line of 8 kilometers and has gone up to about 300 kilometers, this was happening. The road network was also increasing, and in this last 20 years, road network within Delhi has increased by about 5,000 kilometers. That's a staggering number. So just to set the tone, I thought I should put together all these figures here. I would like to introduce now Sanjay Singh, ARCOP Associates, to just talk about, the idea is not to discuss or what you have done, but each one of the esteemed speakers here has dealt in their career an issue where development versus ecological imbalance was seen somewhere or the other. How do they want to set the tone right for this discussion today? What have they dealt with? I will leave the dais to one by one, each one of them. Sanjay, please.
Should I come there?
Wherever.
I think I'll come
If you want to do it from there, you can do it from there. Up to you.
Yeah. So thanks, Manish. So the way I look at this, issue, which is very prevalent right now, as we said, of pollution, I look at it in my projects, with a very different perspective. Can you, sort of capitalize on the space with respect to the pedestrian rights more than you do, for the cars? And I think that's where we approach the project from. So this is one of the projects that, we recently completed, the Bharat Mandapam. And we said, this is going to be the design which is going to be for the people. And, how we made that happen was, if you look at these slides, all that green area that you see is part of the overall Pragati Maidan site. This is close to about 10 acres, if I'm right. And the idea was that there is a metro station which feeds the ITPO development. And, we said, can we sort of distribute the traffic which is going and coming into the metro, bring it into the site, rejuvenate the site as well as the pedestrian experience, right, by creating public spaces, landscape, pavilions. There is close to a 2-acre lake inside with a performance stage, and there are close to about 40,000 square feet of F&B space. Now, people who have visited this place, would wonder where all those F&B spaces, etc., are right now. They're still to get activated. They built, but they're still to get activated. And once they get activated, it's going to be a complementary sort of a relationship between the pedestrian and the project itself. Thereby, you reduce the footprint of the cars. The second thing that we did was, we looked at the efficient public transit, and can we sort of reduce the time that each of the car takes to drop people, pick people, and then, move out. As Delhiites, we know this is a sort of a character that has become, that people want to, get dropped off at the most convenient location. And, this was what was happening in this project before the redevelopment started. So people would, quickly, stop on the Mathura road, pick up people and go. And thereby you are, increasing the, pollution to a particular level. So in this case, one, we took a system of tunnels, city tunnels, which went under the project and which gave direct access to the parking. Also, there was 100,000 square feet of entry plaza, which was created in the basement itself, so that people can get down there in peace and, get into the project. And then this is one of my favorite slides which I show in many of the projects. When we talk about pollution, what is it, that comes to your mind immediately? You talk about barren landscapes, etc. This is the hills. This is a project that we did of a university in near Shimla. And, the top picture that you have is how it was. And there were a lot of environmentalists who came to us and said, you guys are going to build on the slopes and you're going to destroy the hills. Now, you see the picture after the project was built. It is the picture which is taken from the same spot. So you see the hill, how we could manage to afforest it.
Thank you, Sanjay. Sujata, on to you. Talking about your agenda.
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to read out something which I have written yesterday evening. As we watch, sitting in the comfort of our car windows, rolled up, look out to the city designed for high speeds, blurring out everything we encounter. The chunky new glass facades of Naroji Nagar, which reflect the traffic that I'm sitting in, the jam. Korea also built a glass facade in CP, but to reflect the greens of the Central Park. We live in a city between the ridge and the river, a bowl, water flooding towards the river. The higher grounds had all the 7 or 10 ancient cities built. But with our burgeoning population, with inadequate infrastructure, the city has been built over even the lowlands. The sewerage, drainage, solid waste, all mixed up, pour out onto the streets during monsoon. We cry foul at that time, but rest of the year we pass by in our speeding cars with rolled up windows. The fleeting stench pierces, bypassing our air filters, reminding that there is a drain or landfill nearby. But never mind, we will be home soon. Have we forgotten that we used to build our cities right, placing our settlements on higher grounds, leaving the watersheds free? Our street networks allowed easy access. The scale of the streets was walkable, comfortable, with each detail from the door handle to the windowsill had beauty. The built form themselves would shape the street and the open spaces, and passerbys would appreciate the journey. The cities also would respect the borrowed views of the hills and the lakes. That would strengthen the bond of nature with us, because we are nature. But we make our modern cities in the image of what we feel inside: a sense of power, a sense of alienation. While we make more and more infra for more and more cars, and build more and more roads and parking, invest in more and more air purifiers and fancy masks, our building designs also reflect the same alienation: inward looking, large blocks, glass facades, minimum texture. We have made the streets blank, and then we lament if there is a peeing wall around our place, or the cities are not safe for women. The large-scale 60+ meter wide arterial roads cut up the city parcels to make them inaccessible. No gesture to acknowledge the metro or vice versa. As James Hillman says, we have lost the aesthetics of the city, rather we have become anestheticized. So what is the way forward? We need to bring back beauty in our language, soul in our language, to the language of our city. Learn from the past builders. Use new tech, of course, AI, evidence-based learning to gain knowledge. But knowledge about what? We need the wisdom to assimilate that knowledge with the help of our experiences, and assimilate the data and observations to shape our cities, to craft it, working through all its imperfections and potentials, like a sculptor shapes a marble or a piece of wood with all its grains. We cannot do it alone. It may take a village of co-professionals who we can learn from and maybe teach them, and we can shape our cities better. We, in our practice, have tried to do that, and we look forward to more collaborations like that. Thank you.
Move to the next slide. Move to the next slide. Thank you, Sujata, for that insightful information. Sourabh, on to you. You want to go there? Yeah.
So I think I'll pick up from where Sujata left and try to define a little bit of what I feel is really the role of architects, role of an architect, and I think how we can delve into complex situations like these. So, you know, it's like saying whenever you're given a project to do, how you can go in and out from every scale. So this was a project we were doing in Agra, doing the city of Taj and the area around. And we started with the whole idea of looking at the brand to the buildings around, to street furniture, and then to the larger master plan. And from there, we picked up clues to delve into one another. Point being made, architects can go way beyond their brief. Architects almost have the obligation of going beyond their briefs. And I think just to show this as an example that given an urban detail of an area doesn't stop you from going into various other realms. You know, so a little positive from what I can imagine has happened. We can see, I think we can learn from China. This was China 2011, which is pretty much what Delhi is, and that's China now. And I think there is no reason why we shouldn't learn, and I think that's also a reason to get hope. I think there is hope. There is massive hope. This is again China and Delhi now, and that's China today, and let's get Delhi there. So there is a lot. There's a lot of learning from China from my perspective. They've done their bit, I'm sure, and I hope the poll today, the conversations today with all of you will unravel bigger answers, better answers, more relevant answers than China has, but I just picked a few that they did to solve this challenge. I mean, Beijing is probably now one of the most electric, Shenzhen, a completely electric city, electric cars, so we could pick that. We were recently asked to do a bit of a tourism policy and build guideline for Meghalaya, and the biggest mandate that really came to us was how to not have the wrongs happen. If today you look at the cities least polluted in India, I think Shillong comes as one of the top. And how the mandate of somebody coming from Delhi, somebody who's seeing the mess that's being created by all of us in this room perhaps, how we don't make that kind of a mistake potentially in greener pastures. So how to program things to protect our resources. So we were looking at Cherrapunji or Sora where it rained a lot, but now how not to make it this massive commercial space with lots of hotels, and how water resource, water research could be done. How one could play with program. How would one could put nature over man. I mean, to just teach that to the government or to kind of push that to the government, you had to dumb it down, but to make sure that any and every step they took wasn't about putting blatant infrastructure, was first questioning, is it really putting nature over man? So how that could be done, or how all the natural resources could be put in. So, I mean, it went to the fact that we were to do an elephant sanctuary and we actually caged the people and let the elephants go wild. So that could be looked at. How to build extremely temporary. There is nothing wrong in building temporary. It ensures less concrete, it ensures using materials which can be recyclable. I think that's a role we need to. We need to start thinking as architects to build as small as possible. You know, so that's really, really important. And of course, local, as much local as possible. Use bamboo, use minimal material, use minimum footprints. I think those were the kind of policy decisions we took. Another big policy decision was that every tourism would really be adventure tourism, which fundamentally meant tents and camps and all this will go well. You don't need to keep putting 7-star and 5-star hotels. So putting these kinds of policy level arguments as architects, as urbanists, as planners, I think can massively help in anything we do, especially in cities like Delhi. And just a quick one on, we were doing a riverfront at the city of Patna. The red blotch is the entire city, and the river is 5 kilometers of width that swells in and out. So we made the river the big stakeholder, and we then looked at what all the city not have. Look at the density. I think every city in India almost looks like this in Google. Almost all the green patches taken away, all cultural institutions getting weathered. So we put all that study into a program and we put it on the front of the river. And suddenly the river was really an idea that was river being its stakeholder primary, and then just use brick. We almost said we will not pour concrete, and then put all these programs and make it a forest next to the river. So I think that's the way we could do. I end this little argument from a clear example of one of my favorite cities. This is the city of Amsterdam. They were rejuvenating the project as improving the solution of railway networks, and the city of Amsterdam, the railway station of Amsterdam. So Bentham Crowell are the architects. They are also our partners on a lot of work on infrastructure. And so they came up with this whole scheme and study of how to add more infrastructure, everything. Most of it went underground. What I want to show really here is that this is what the city looked like. This is what the infrastructure looked like before they started. And when they ended, this is what it looked like. Their argument removed infrastructure, their argument removed roads, it did not add. This is the after and this is the before. That's the point being made, and I think it's high time all of us restrain from building and restrain from any kind of harm we can do, if possible, under ourselves. Thank you.
On to you, Samir. Thanks, Saurabh.
Thank you, Manish. We thought we'd just like to set the tone by talking about a few projects that we've executed which are in the public realm, not for private clients, and see how they interface with the idea of sustainability and ecology. So the first one is the redevelopment of the promenade at Cart Road. I live in the suburb called Bandra of Mumbai, and there's a road that faces the sea there. So at some point just before the pandemic, a group of us architects got together. We are called Bandra Collective, and we collectively kind of redid this whole promenade along, with the government. I mean, I'm showing you only a small section of it. This is a skate park that we did. The entire section is about 1.5 kilometers long. And sorry, I'll go back. And the whole thing was beautifully designed. It's working very well. It gets tons of people. But the reason I'm including it here is because to illustrate what's happening now, which is the coastal road project that's coming in the city of Bombay, promises to wipe out this entire project because there's a connector from the coastal road project to the city planned right here, just to the right of this skate park. And the local roads do not have sufficient capacity to absorb the traffic that the coastal roads will deliver. So what the authorities want to do is wipe out this entire promenade and extend the road. So I just want to illustrate that even though you do fresh projects, you're just a few years old, they work well. These projects themselves are susceptible and fragile to purely planned infrastructure. The next is the restoration of Bandra Station. So this project took us about 10 years to execute. We made a plaza in front of Bandra Station. We reorganized all the traffic flows. We quadrupled the amount of bus stops. We introduced specific ways for people to take share autos, private autos, And the reason why we included it here is to say that simple solutions, to clean up things, organize traffic, can also save a lot in terms of emissions, traffic jams. You're simultaneously saving time, money, and reducing pollution. So you don't need very high-tech solutions in a lot of cases. Our urban centers are quite often badly organized, and badly planned. So as architects, and individuals, these are projects that you can take up yourself. This is a project that we approached the government with. They said yes, and finally took 10 years to execute. So as an architect and a citizen, you can change your city. You don't have to wait for the government to do it. This is an example of that, right? And simple solutions can help to reduce emissions and save time. Yeah, this is how it now. This is the new bus stops and the plaza in front. This is the restoration of a very old village of about 120 or so odd houses, which are all 150 years old. So we got into this project about 8 years ago, and we've been working with the village ever since. And we did a number of things to kind of restore this. And one of the things we did was a very innovative firefighting system, which we noticed that the roads is a narrow winding road, and all the houses are made of wood. The floors and the roofs are made of wood. And the road is too narrow for a fire engine to access it. So we laid a firefighting pipe under the center of the road and put in hydrants at various points in the village. So the fire engine can stand on the main road, pump into the village, it's a dry pipe, and the firefighters can enter the village, connect to a hydrant at various locations, and then fight the fire. So we executed this, we tested it with the fire agencies, and it's now working well. But the reason why we've put it here is to say that these villages are, part of our heritage. The buildings are extremely sustainably built. They're made of stone, mud plaster, lime plaster. The floors are wood, the roofs are wood, there's Mangalore tiles, And these are rapidly being replaced with concrete buildings. So we normally talk about architectural heritage that's being lost. But I'd like to say that this is part of sustainability heritage that's also being lost when we develop in the modern style. Yeah, this is some paving that we did in the village. They're village squares. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Samir. So you heard everybody, you heard what the esteemed panel, people they've been doing, what the various examples from across the world Saurabh gave. Samir talked about the work that they have been doing collaboratively in Mumbai. They did the promenade. Sanjay talked about the Pragati Maidan. How does the city work in a situation where it's divided under various stakeholders? You've got the bureaucrats, you've got architects, planners, you've got people who have to run that city. Who takes the onus? Who takes responsibility? Today, the situation that we are sitting in with the pollution and things getting worse by the year, who's responsible ultimately? We keep shifting the blames all the time. Sometimes the blame goes on to, yes, the government policies are not correct. People are not correcting the entire thing. There's too much of car, there's too much of traffic. Point here is, somebody needs to find out or investigate where the actual problem lies. So to shake it up, to make it more interesting and to make it more democratic here, we thought we should take every segment, and there are going to be 5 segments to this whole thing. We start every segment with an opinion poll. All of you will see a code on your screen, on the main screen. Scan the code and we'll put up the first question. It's just an opinion poll. Let's hear it out. What you guys think about it. Let's have the first question. Should Delhi be made car free? Is the question. What do you guys think? Scan yes or a no answer.
Before or after?
Both.
Okay.
It's a simple question.
We can also do. We can also vote.
Yeah, of course. We also have to vote. Can't scan it.
Is it too far?
Can you increase the
Zoom in.
The scan size, please, Ankit? Go back to the original slide. People have read the question now. Just put the scan to the full screen. Are you able to scan it? Yeah. Did we all manage? Great. Can we have the results, Ankit? No is the majority, that Delhi should not be made car free. Very interesting. That sets the tone. So I'm going to ask the first question. I think Sanjay would be the right person to ask this. He did the mega development of Pragati Maidan. You've got the metro station on one side. The entire car parking has been shifted towards the Bhairav Mandir, as I know, and there are a couple of other distributed car parkings. What are the measures that you were taking while planning the entire complex? Where, how did you manage the balance, or what were the number studies or number crunching you did in terms of the mass that was coming in via public transport and private vehicles?
Yeah, let me put it like this, Manish. When we got that project, the scale of the problem was so humongous. We said, there is no way that you can do any sort of paper studies which is going to, sort of put you up to it. So, I asked one of my colleagues that we should go and stand there and see how the traffic grows and what the problem and issues are. And we stood there, from 8 o'clock in the morning till about 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon for 3 days. And we actually could see how the problem was unfolding. Okay. There's one more thing that we discovered, that everybody spoke about the lack of road space. There's a huge amount of space in that zone. Okay. There was so much space that it went beyond the right of way, and we said, we can sort of cannibalize on that. And then the next stage was, of course, the studies, which threw up very interesting numbers. We kept talking about cars and parkings and how people come in. Before 2017, the year before that, that's 2016 IITF, the maximum footfall on a particular peak day was 170,000 people. Out of that 170,000 people, 120,000 people came from metro. Okay, so that was a big relief. And then we got thinking, how do you sort of take advantage of this? So the scheme planned a foot-over bridge, okay, which was about 9 meters wide. It had the incorporation of travelators and golf carts, etc., which took you directly from the metro station right into the Pragati Maidan complex, right? And to make sure that we leverage that further to our advantage, we gave a dedicated side, exit from metro instead of the regular one, so that people don't go out of the metro complex, okay, and then come in, right? We captured them before they exited from a special exit, and the advantage that gave us was that you could take out the security frisking from the equation, because 120,000 people you frisk, that's what leads to congestion. And then we came about, which was part of one of my slides, where we said, can we make one part of the site really become a part of the public promenade that exists outside. Okay, the whole idea behind Pragati Maidan redevelopment from day one, in my mind at least, was that this should be a project which should, one, set new standards of saying how public projects should get built, wherein these projects give more to the city than they take from it. Okay, and the result was the city tunnel, and I quite agree, and it rhymes with my philosophy also, what Sourabh said, that architects have to learn to go beyond their brief. Okay, when we say people don't listen, I'm sorry, people don't talk. If you talk, people will listen, and I can tell you this from experience, that people in the bureaucracy will listen to you, okay, if you're persistent and if you are backed up with your research. Okay, we experienced that at the time of ITPO, and the city tunnel was actually a result of our going beyond our brief and talking to the bureaucracy and demonstrating to them that, look, if you do this project and you don't sort of line it up with the city tunnel, you will have a big disaster on your hands. And people right at the top listened, and they appreciated. So I think architects must go beyond their brief to fulfill the convictions that they have, and people will listen.
I was unfortunate to use that city tunnel thrice. I was always caught in a jam there.
I'm sorry?
I was unfortunate with those city tunnels. I was always caught in jams. 3 times I went into that city tunnel, but there could be other reasons to that. So I'm going to open this dais now to cross-questioning from each other. I'm not going to be asking questions from you guys. Anybody who can now start. Sujata, you did the project you've been working with metro stations, you've been sorting out the promenades of metros. So Sanjay has made a statement very clearly, and you heard him about. I couldn't hear him. You can't, guys, we can't hear. There's a lot of echo happening amongst each other. If we need to talk to each other, then we need to get slightly better sound.
What did he say?
So they worked at multi-pronged approach. Pragati Maidan. They worked at multi-pronged approach.
So can I talk about?
Yes, please, please.
Sure.
That is okay.
And you have to give me a chance to talk after that.
Of course, it's a debate.
Let's make it a little contentious.
Yes.
So Pragati Maidan is a project to access for which we had to cut the trees of Sundar Nagar. And I am still angry about that, because we had to make that tunnel road to access Pragati Maidan. I myself, our firm had done the area level study of that when we were doing the MMI of ITO area, and we realized from Bhairo Mark to ITO, it's like 1 kilometer. We needed better network. Though now that you have given that road going through, but it doesn't add to the network of the city. It's like, it could have, like in New York, you don't need a separate road or something, access like that. Everything is kind of part of the city system. So the new roads that have been made are not part of the city system. So, and we cannot even access the Pragati Maidan from that particular road. Maybe the levels could have been decided. Now coming to the question.
You probably will have to drive with me next time, and I'll get you into the parking.
It's not about the architect's perception, it is about the people's perception.
Yeah.
That we, it's about how Secondly, what you said about should Delhi be car free, I feel Delhi should be car difficult, not free. So we should have congestion pricing, we should have high parking on street parking, we should have in the commercial districts have very high parking costs. Multi-level car parkings maybe in the commercial district should be, you know, so like that and maybe we start from area based. For example, Connaught Place, the central portion can become car free. Then we, you know, that's how the European cities are doing it. Like, it's like you kind of make it in such a way that, see, the thing is that you have to make it easy for the people to go from one place to another. If you suddenly make it car free and don't give the other options, so the options have to be there, which we as a community of designers and even policy makers, we have to go and tell the government.
But that's exactly what we're discussing, right? At this point in time, if I say there's metro, there is metro, but the metro connectivity to smaller areas. I mean, if I have a house, let's say in GK1, M block,
exactly,
and from there I have to take the first metro, what is the way for me to go? Either I'll take an Uber or an auto rickshaw, which in peak hours is problematic. So are we saying that we obviously cannot get completely rid of cars?
Uber and auto are better than personal car.
Yes.
Because they're moving the whole day. Personal car is 90% stationary.
Totally
either
agree.
at your office or at your house.
So are we saying that we increase parking spaces endlessly on metro stations?
No, you should not have parking except for the, you know, metro stations at the like Kalindi
That's what I'm
Kunj and
saying,
all.
that
You
all
should
metro
not
stations should have more parking spaces than?
Parking, no, only for IPT. The autos and whatever, you know,
So,
for the last mile connectivity and walking space.
Let's zoom out of a particular area and look at this problem in general. You know, all our cities have congestions. Is this a solvable problem? Yes or no?
Yes.
That's the question, right?
Yes.
To my mind, it is a solvable problem. There are cities who have done it, and there are several solutions. So one traditional solution in India has to be to add more roads, either in the form of expressways, which like in Bombay, which is the coastal road, which is happening. That has been proved in the last 15, 20 years to be not a solution, because the minute you add more roads, people buy more cars and fill up. So there's an endless capacity to fill up roads. So what is the solution? When you're, as people say, you know, when somebody is saying, am I late, and I'm in a jam, you should say, you know, you're not in a jam, you are the jam. You know, that's what you should tell them. So this congestion happens because a road has a certain capacity, you know, and the last 30% of capacity, you know, the last 30% of cars that you add to its ultimate capacity, slow everyone down, slow 100% of all of us on the road to a very slow speed and really reduce. So if you can just adjust that last 25 to 30% capacity, then everybody can move quickly on the roads. And how do we do that? Instead of imposing a time cost on everybody who's using the road networks, you impose a money cost on the people who actually do that. So that has worked very well in a nation city, in Singapore. If you go to Singapore, there are virtually no traffic jams. Of course, Singapore has gone beyond. They also have a certain thing called a car, it's called an EOI, or there's a word. So when you purchase a car, you have to have a license to have a car, which is more expensive than the car. It's very expensive. But the problem of congestion has been solved. What one needs in cities is mobility. People should be able to move around quickly. That is the aim. Cars are not necessarily the solution. Mobility is the solution. So a mixture of all these modes, public, private, this, can work when there's a properly designed congestion pricing system, you know, in place. I think that's the answer for all our cities.
I mean, Singapore had the highest AQI level just in the 90s itself, and they decongested by increasing the road tax and the parking tax. Sourabh, on to you if there's something like for and against that you're talking about.
No, I can't agree more with what Sujata said, actually, that make it very car difficult. I think high time we stop having these cars driven by one person or just two people in the car. We need to make it absolutely inconvenient if you really have to use a car alone. So car sharing has to happen. People have to think twice before doing it. And I think zonal, Delhi has been a layer of cities, and Delhi, and I'm being very specific on Delhi because I think that's the issue to be addressed, that how we can localize these zones and have these differences and try these things out. I think there is not a single attempt towards this, while it's like, I always say in Bombay, every time it floods, people come back and we say that's the strength of Bombay. I think that's the weakness of Bombay. And I think this pollution nonsense in Delhi is the weakness of Delhi. That we accept it, after 2 months, life will be back to normal. I think we need to stop and do something about it. And the way to do it is to experiment. There are no right ways. We will have 100 answers with 100 people out here. So I think we need to get reality checks of what are real areas, how businesses could be done. I think there are many other prompts that one should look at, but definitely reduction of cars, electric cars, taxes on cars. I think car is a key component, and I think it will completely change the mindset of people once we start addressing that one thing. I think people have taken it for granted in Delhi that it's the easy luxury way out.
Another point can I add on the number of cars? Actually, even a policy about car is that if you're having a particular a size of plot, you need. That is the parking requirement.
Yeah.
Yes, ECS count. That is the parking.
You need to provide that much of ECS parking because you have a certain plot
Exactly.
size. Doesn't mean that you need to buy that many number of cars.
No. Why should we have plot-based parking requirements for architects? I'm telling you, we should have area-based parking caps.
I mean, in Manhattan, if you build a building, you are not allowed to exceed a certain number of parking spots. It's very small.
Yeah.
It probably is like one car for every 3 or 4 apartments. It's not that much. You know? And going forward, when we have driverless cars, first of all, when we have electric and driverless cars, the cars are not going to be kept in this. They'll be on the road, so you don't need so many parking spaces. Number one. But what we have to worry about is that when you have driverless cars, the cost of transport is basically comes to the energy cost itself. You're not paying a lot for an Uber. You'll be paying maybe 15, 20 rupees or 10 rupees for a short trip, because you only have the energy cost. You don't have a driver. It's going to be very, very cheap, and anybody can access that travel. So that's something we have to be all cautious about, and it's coming very soon.
Country, knowing how Google Maps do not work properly, are we saying that we're propagating driverless cars? Do we have that kind of an efficient network system out here? I mean,
don't have a choice, it's coming.
I'm trying to get the thing. Are we promoting that we should have cars? Are we saying that there should be lesser cars, more connectivity through more modes of vehicles between the metro to your house, maybe shared cars? Should we build more parking spaces? Should we build more flyovers because we've been making continuous flyovers?
So, we say let's, ban the cars, reduce the number of cars, make it more difficult, for sure. Okay, but I think in my opinion, that's the end result. Why is it when you talk about Singapore, you talk about Amsterdam, you talk about other cities in the world where the car usage is lesser. Okay, look at America. Car usage is extremely high, extremely high. And what's the basic, difference here? Look at Singapore, look at Amsterdam. These are all very walkable cities.
Yes.
Walking is a pleasure.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you say, make it difficult for cars, I would say for sure, but that's the end result. You start with making the city easy to walk. Okay. Once you do that, once you see while it may sound very nice that you bring out a diktat and say, I'm going to take away 50% of the cars of city of Delhi. You would have a problem on your hands. I would not be comfortable with it. I would not want my family, my daughter who's sitting out somewhere here, or my wife to be walking the road, okay, and I would not feel safe about it. Have you made your cities safe? Have you made your cities walkable? Is your climate suitable for that? Is Dubai a walkable city? Does Dubai has number of cars which are equivalent to a city of Singapore, with respect to densities? Why is it America has so many cars? Because their cities are nodes just spread out all over the place, huge distances to be covered, not walkable friendly. So they've gone ahead and adopted cars as a means of primary transport, as a means of primary mobility. I think the answer would lie, of course, in upgrading the infrastructure for walking, make it a pleasure, etc. Also invest in technology of the cars. Okay, what Sourabh said, make it difficult. I agree. Make it easy for you to drive a car which is going to be technology driven, which does not pollute, which helps the environment, and your solution would be there. So I think it's something wherein we have to say there are aspects which need to be addressed before you say, let's take the cars out. Okay?
Yeah, so I think I hear you, Sanjay, but reality is that at one level you have your safety of people, and the other level the hazards of health to all and everybody. So,
agree with you.
So I think there is a level of comfort in cars and this discomfort in the inconvenience. And I think that's why we're saying zonally. I mean, say a Nehru place where you know that once you're at the metro station, the entire area is captured on a pedestrian. Probably people need to say that the hub of the cars needs to be far away from there. But we need to start somewhere. I mean, I'll again give an anchor to Europe. People now take the inconvenience of giving 4 hours in a train journey than half an hour of a flight.
Yeah.
There's a fly shaming going on because they understand that the larger picture is much more important. So if we don't come down our convenience, if we don't attempt, I think we are doomed in this city. Already all of us are either coughing or struggling with our parents or kids, and there's no denying that. So I think almost health becomes way more important than everything else. So there's got to be a balance. My only argument is we need to make a start and we need to experiment. There probably is not one right answer.
So
Saurabh, do you know what China did to reduce their pollution?
Absolutely.
I mean, okay, let me just put some basic question to all of you here. What is the percentage of population that uses the cars in Delhi versus people who use public transport? Can anybody throw any number on that? And are we designing the city only for that few people who are using the car? And I agree with Sourabh when he says that, you know, you have to get a little inconvenient in terms of your commute every day. Rather than, we're buying vegetables in car today, which is probably half a kilometer away.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of convenience we're looking at. At what point do you decide that it's convenient versus safety? You know, there is a very thin line between these two things.
Yeah, so just for that half a kilo of vegetables, you're moving 1.5 tons of steel, you know, which is not, doesn't make sense. But I mean, the figures for Delhi are not so clear, but if you look at developed cities, about 30 to 40% of trips are in public transport. A similar number, 30 to 40% are in private transport, mainly cars. And the remaining are, they call it active transport, which is cycling, walking and stuff like that. And my feeling is that the figure for Delhi is around 40-45% take the metro currently. The metro is a huge success. So that's something definitely to be celebrated. Now we have to look at how to expand the reach of the metro and take it even further, like you said, the last mile connectivity. You know? And also simultaneously reduce congestion. You cannot have unlimited cars. This is what you're ending up in. You have to control cars in a certain way.
So to sum up, anybody wants to summarize this? Sourabh?
No, I think we are all pretty much, obviously if there was a right answer, we would have all solved it.
Yeah.
I think the ownership is about taking ownership yourself, to make a start yourselves, and maybe using less cars. But obviously, as an architect, as a forum here, I think all of us need to voice that in our public projects with the opportunities you and I have, on how to make a difference by starting some conversations and experiments throughout the city. And I think there is an absolute emergency out here. So it's a pity that this emergency is just not being worked on.
I would be ready to take a couple of audience questions on this.
Just one thing that I wanted to add. Recently, some architect had posted about Sarojini Nagar redevelopment plan as a TOD plan, transit-oriented development, where we could not see the metro station in his plan that he had shared. So these large areas are getting redeveloped now in the city. So there we have the opportunity to do it right, you know, connect to the metro.
I'll come to the policy section. We are going to address the policy section in the end. Right now, it was purely about flyovers, underground parkings, cars versus metros. I'll be happy to take a couple of questions from the audience to anybody that's directed, and then we can sum up. We'll do another poll after that. Yes, please. Can anybody give her a mic?
I think my question is around, you said that, you know, it's about inconvenience as well. But, so I was in London for 2 years. I used to take the tube everywhere. I can't do the same thing in Delhi. I don't feel safe. So I think when you talk about that making it much more car difficult, agreed. But at the same time, there has to be equal measures taken for women's safety. Because I traveled to college, like when I was studying here for my bachelor's, I used to go in the metro. But did I feel completely safe? Not really.
I'm sorry, what's the question? What's the question here? What's the question
So
here?
my question is really around that, you know, when you talk about making it much more difficult for cars, like these measures have to be taken as well. Because for me as a person, I'll just be spending more money and like still taking my car out.
Anybody wants to answer? Is that a question? Are you directing this question to somebody here?
It's just a general like question to anybody in the panel.
I mean, honestly, beta, we agree to this. We agree to your challenge. But the point being made is maybe you do a few rounds, few trips lesser, or you figure out sharing. We all have to just be aware that something needs to be done. And I think the other, I would also quote Samir on this, that we are the jam. So as long as that awareness starts coming, I think solutions will start flowing out.
I think the important point,
Sanjay's mic.
I think the important point is that all of us agree it is an emergency. You have to address it. Okay. Now, that's okay. I think the guys can hear me.
The safety joins, I mean, safety.
Yeah, I mean, there is a concern of safety, of course, but safety is also connected to your convenience or inconvenience at some point or the other. You could do a cab sharing. One could, so to decide this factor on a very small, yes, safety being a concern, but are we saying that are the people who are using the cars, they are the only people who are susceptible to this unsafety and the rest of the city is okay? Because most of the people do travel by metro. And there are people who travel by metro after 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, up to 11 o'clock. So are we saying that the city is safe for them, but it's not safe for the people who go by cars?
No, I think, you know, all of us agree that something needs to be done. It's an emergency situation. It's absolute emergency. Okay. At the same time, you know, I do, have the strong conviction that, you know, just banning cars will not work. And I think nobody here disagrees. It's a good point that Sourabh made that, you know, you have to start somewhere so you can pick a smaller model. You know, a smaller model could be, you know, probably one block of Greater Clash. Okay. Can we improve the, you know, walking infrastructure, make it more convenient, and then ask people to take out, to forget about cars for smaller distances? The point that was being made that, you know, you buy 500, you know, grams of vegetable and you know, create 1 kg of carbon, you know. I think if those small steps can be started and it can be demonstrated that these are scalable, I think the problem will start getting, you know, addressed and at least noticed for addressal. I think it's an important point that we are all making here that, you know, for the infrastructure to be created, somebody has to take note and that somebody has to be spoken to. And I come back to my point that people will listen, you know, you have to talk.
Sure. Yes, we'll take one more question and then we'll move on to the next segment.
Hello, good evening, sir. So, my question is, can we take 3 cities? For example, Delhi is obviously the major city, and other than that, Chandigarh, and the third city that is going to develop right now, it is Greater Noida or the Yamuna Expressway, the whole part. So, for example, when Chandigarh was made, so they, one of the consideration was ki it should be walkable, and how do you compare all these three cities now? As in, you have the past, you have the present, and you have the future. So how can we contribute for the future also and for the today? So this is my question.
So can I answer that question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I feel very angry at the new development, Greater Noida and now Jewar and all. Actually, the planners are making it, and they are making 60 meter, 90 meter wide roads. The networks are pretty bad only. And so I feel that maybe Chandigarh or at that time, something got our planning norms wrong or something. Like in Delhi, if you look at it, Delhi has the problem of network. Like if you look at the Ames area or something, so the arterial roads get jammed because the inner roads don't work.
Totally.
In places like Barcelona or New York or whatever, the good cities where you have better networks, there you have options to go from one place to another. So the new cities have the opportunity to create better, networks so that it works, the mobility works for everybody.
But for Delhi, one of the solution that I think government is already doing is trying to bypass congestion from the Delhi, as in people who are coming from Meerut, the whole eastern and western peripheral has been already made. For example, people going from Greater Noida to Gurgaon, we have to travel from via Delhi to Gurgaon, but one more network is being made. So that is the plus point that already government is doing, or the other parties. But what about the future? The city that is already been made in front of us, we are talking about Delhi right now, but other than what are we adding up in the Greater Noida sector and this?
We should first look at our cities, are they working?
So
the new cities, of course, like maybe a lot of architects.
No, but I think Sujata, he's making a very important point, I thank you, for bringing in Chandigarh into the equation. And I don't have an answer to this, but I think, some sort of surveys and research, etc., should be done as to what is the car usage pattern in a city like Chandigarh, which is much better well planned. It has more opportunities for people to walk and cycle. Is it the same? And you will, probably have an answer, which is going to, stand out Chandigarh much better than the city of Delhi or, Jeddah and etc.
Yeah. To answer your question, I think all new cities should be planned primarily around transport. That should be the key guiding factor in every aspect of planning the whole city, apart from everything else.
There are many new cities coming, RRTS, there are many new cities coming in UP and all. So they should be, the node should be the transport.
All right. So we'll go to the next segment, next question. I'll take the next one. Yeah, sure.
So, sorry, it's not a question. I just did an experiment actually for the last 4 or 5 years in my own office. We wanted to actually reduce the amount of transport that was going on. So today technology is at a place where actually a lot of commute can be reduced. We do a lot of work online. We meet on sites and sampling meetings and all of the rest of the work. We try and make sure we don't have to travel. Secondly, in terms of our office transport, we have made a point that we only do cabs. In fact, I'm here in a cab today. And one of the solutions for safety that I've seen is that instead of the Uber, you go back to your Sardarji cabwala. Because they are local people who would be around you, and they have a very strong network, and they'll be trusted people who can take you around. So I think reviving those systems are very, very important. It's a one-time transaction for an Uber guy or an auto guy. So that does in terms of safety, but having a trusted guy around, I think all of us can do it. And another thing is optimizing your time. I shifted to Greater Noida about 7 years back, and I realized that I required to line up 3 meetings in Delhi. So instead of traveling 6 days, which I used to do when I was in Delhi, I'm traveling 2 days. So I am less of a jam in the city now than I was before.
Fantastic. All right, that was an interesting discussion. I'll move on to the next question. See, we talk about the Delhi pollution through various factors. Very easily, it's easy to shift the blame to the parali or the crop burning in Punjab. We don't take the blame on the cars, we just discussed that. Delhi is huge in construction. We just saw the numbers. The amount of RMCs and the trucks that go around within the city are astonishing. The kind of government housings that are getting built, right from the government housing to Central Vista project to the private projects, every second house in Delhi is getting constructed by the developer. So it is no doubt that there is a huge amount of construction debris or the dust that adds to the particulate matter when it comes down to the smog in Delhi. So the next question is, should prefab or off-site construction be made mandatory for every project in Delhi? whether it is a large-scale government project, whether it is a developer's project, or whether it is even a smaller scale. I would rule out the small-scale plotted developments, but I would say to a mid-size to a large-scale project, should we make as a government ruling that it should be done off-site construction or a prefab construction? Yes or no? Next opinion. Can we have the scan code? Yeah? Has everybody voted? Can we have the results? Interesting. Most of the people agree that it should be a prefab off-site construction. Fantastic. I was expecting the other answer, but I would love to involve audience in this. In fact, I'm seeing Vivek getting very excited about this, that are people serious about it, and I would like to involve Vivek also in this discussion.
We can get Vivek up on the stage on this.
Yes. So I would ask Vivek to kickstart this whole conversation, that when people are saying yes, why are you saying no to it? Let's roll it in a different manner. Mic to Vivek. No. It is. I saw that there was this. I would like to understand why you say no to it.
We're very curious.
Yes.
Because, we just start playing God, unfortunately. And that's one thing that I always hold across about architects, playing God.
In the mic.
It's a need of the hour, whatever. We are the world's most legislated countries and under-governed countries. We have everything in place. It's just that we do not implement. Do you think we can't remove pollution? We have everything, every solution is there, but we don't implement it. It's as simple as that. So, all these questions will go out. The only people who can solve is police. Police. When you do correct policing, when you stop all of this nonsense, everything gets solved. Trust me. And as far as the connectivity is concerned, I think we live in a country, and at least in city, where not just pollution, but also the weather plays an extremely important role. We have extremely hot weather, we have extreme cold. The last mile connectivity is the issue, that's it, nothing else. What Sanjay is saying that, 100,000 square feet area is a promenade but why not just have like a train? After the metro, you cannot have e-rickshaws or you cannot have golf carts carrying 120,000 people to the
which is what the point was, to make it convenient, for
so
people.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
And they'll adopt.
If the travel distance is going to be a couple of kilometers, people are not used to walking. So you suddenly can't impose, as architects say, no, people start walking.
Agreed.
No, give them a shuttle. Give them a shuttle which is away from the metro, and that should have been part of the ITPO. Like ITPO should run that shuttle.
It's already there, Vivek.
Are we going back
That's
as
a part of the
Let's
solution?
stick to this question.
But you're right.
Let's stick to the current question.
Yeah.
So sticking to the current question, what are we solving by having steel? How do you produce that steel? Tell me. And also building typologies. Certain typologies only can have steel construction. You can't have steel construction, and eventually you will come back to concrete also.
Prefab or an offsite construction doesn't mean only
That's
steel.
exactly what I said. So
it also means precast.
Prefab eventually will get translated into using steel or any other material which is to be industrially produced. So you are adding to whatever issues that you will have. You will eventually shift all of that outside of Delhi. Then the transport of all that will have to be done to Delhi. All of the problems are going to be there.
No, I think it's very
utopian.
The question is to shift it outside the Delhi, and I would take this to Sujata, and I would ask this question, since you've been working a lot with, the policies on green policies and things. When we talk about an off-site construction, we are talking about not shifting out of the city, but within a constrained environment within that city. I think when Nehru Stadium development happened, there was an entire shed, an enclosed shed that was made by Shapurji Palanji, and everything was produced inside that shed, and the whole thing was done as a prefab.
See, I don't have any problems with prefab per se, apart from the carbon footprint that it has. I feel the way we make our buildings nowadays, it has a very short lifespan. Like earlier when we used to make these beautiful cities, they are like timeless, like 400, 500 years. So I think firstly we are not making things of value, I feel, on today's date, the architect. So we could use the same stone and brick and whatever we have been using.
You do realize that cutting of stone contributes maximum to the pollution in the air.
We could reuse the stone. What I'm saying is whatever the material has already, what is there already, we could use that. So instead of probably prefab, reuse, or even repurpose existing structures to, you know, make them work to reduce the construction in a city. So those things are, I think it's like you can't have a blanket statement
we broke down the housing. Sanjay, you can answer this.
So, you know, when we talk about prefab and offsite, you know, I don't know how we can say no. I think it's a definite yes. Okay. You know, Vivek, you know, brought forth the issue that, you know, if you do prefab, then you have to bring everything, you know, with trucks and you are adding to the carbon footprint. Well, you know, the stone or the steel is anyways coming to the side. So it's going to come finished. Okay. I understand. Okay, I'm trying to make a point that, you know, I think making it mandatory with respect to any project which is beyond a particular size as off-sited is an absolute yes. Okay, we have to do it. And, you know, that in my mind is a no-brainer. Okay. However, I want to bring another issue here. Every single large project, every single public project, every single large private project in this country is delayed by years.
Yes.
Okay. A project which would be contributing, you know, and you cannot do away with pollution, you cannot do away with the carbon footprint of creating new building, new square footage. You can't do away with that. That's a fact of life. That's physics. Okay. So if it happens, it finishes in 2 years or 3 years, versus it is finishing in 7 years, you know, we've already doubled it.
Yes.
Okay. And why does that happen? Because we move into projects, we move into construction as a system without finalizing anything. The designs are not finalized, the construction documentations are not done, we are rushed into projects, construction begins. This is the only place probably, you know, where it happens this way. That, you know, when you are getting into foundations, you know, you're happy that you've given the foundations, you've, you know, sort of formalized your structural grid, you're okay. All right. And, you know, I mean, this is one of the aspects. So is there a case in point to bring down the construction cycle of the projects? I think definitely. Yes. Off-site, absolutely. Okay. I said this about 4 years back when this Parali issue, every, you know, year in November, December, it would come. And I would say, you know, we come and talk about it in November, December and say, you know, can we do this or can we do that? Yeah. All right. Stone cutting is one of the biggest culprits because yes, it is releasing such minute, you know, pollutants and, you know, the stone particles, and it is going into your lungs. Yeah. That it's not even funny. And everybody is doing it. You know, people make kothis in Greater Kailash and Punjabi Bagh, and, you know, they would, you know, get this stone from Rajasthan.
We don't see it, but,
you know, cut them. So can it not be mandated?
Yeah.
Yes. You will need police to do it, of course. Okay, you're creating opportunities for everybody here. So I think, you know, in the larger interest, off-site has to be done. And I would say that, you know, even for plotted, you have to have some mandatory guidelines. You know, we are still using the clay bricks. We're still not graduated to AAC blocks. Okay, when I in my house used AAC block, people looked at me, you know, ये क्या use कर रहे हो भाई आप? You know, you're not using ईंट नहीं इस्तेमाल कर रहे हो. So, you know, that has to go. Materiality has to be looked at.
I mean, I totally agree with Sanjay on this, where, you know, I think we architects are a bit lazy when it comes down to planning a project. We want to do an in-situ construction because we release the foundation drawings and we sit tight that, okay, let the decision.
It was not meant for the architects, it was meant for the clients, actually.
Sorry? I mean, nobody wants to take responsibility on that. Prefab, you have to plan everything in advance. All your drawings, all your construction documents, all your tendering has to be done in advance.
Manish, we are used to it. My one system I did 25 years back, and a lot of people do it even today. If you have to do, you have to do.
We're talking average architect. We're not talking about, one or two cases out here. Is everybody prepared? Because ultimately, the onus lies on to the architectural firm. When we say we make it mandatory, I think the biggest opposition will come from an architectural lobby in terms of saying that why make it mandatory?
Actually, where I was taking it is, if you look at, I had some brief experience in Dubai, where they said, all the drawings good for construction have to be submitted before you start construction.
Yeah.
Okay. They still make changes. They have their own ecosystem. But if you mandate that your approvals are actually not statutory approvals, they are good for construction documentation approval. I mean, of course, mandating things by the law has its own set of problems. But then that's one way. It's most of the times in government projects, it's the clients which tell you, I want the tender out in 3 days. I will not name the project a mega project again, which was told to us yesterday that concept is approved, and now they want the tender to be floated in 1 month's time.
Of course, this leads to tomorrow when we do, suppose we get into this, it will lead to mechanization, factory production. With the large population that we have, are we taking away the human factor? Are we taking away employment, job opportunities by doing something like that? Any?
I think just before we go to that, I want to, again, unfortunately, China copies the world, and I am promoting for a change that we copy China. But, like Sanjay said, time is one of the big constraints. The way we are operating is a big constraint. I think the other big thing is taking the responsibility of that construction and what it's doing to the city. And China has incredibly stringent laws that not a speck of dust can come out. The amount of sprinkling they do, the amount of controls and enveloping they do. I think those are fundamentals that if you really want your product, make sure you've got these things sorted out. You can't take it for granted that your Saria can be on the road and the labor can come and go wherever they want. So I think this whole reality of putting construction, of course, as one of the other propellers of this pollution, we really need to buttress this with the processes and the policies around that. I think that has to be incredibly stringent, and there's no rocket science in it. You just have to use these policies to make sure it's part of your construction document. It's part of constructing as a price to construct in Delhi, period.
Are we saying that the large government projects that are happening right now, 15-story, 20-story housings that are going on, with the limited budget, with L1 contractors where even quality is a concern, are we saying that they'll be putting sprinklers and they'll be putting controls and measures to close it?
Put it as, firstly, the government budgets are not low. Second,
boss, go back 15 years, all right? All the environmental, conditions that you talk about today were not there 20 years back. Now they are there, they are part of life, they are part of your budgeting. You have to make it as part of your budget, you have to.
Yeah.
Yes. Geography, topography.
It's happening world over, and in India also. It is typical, it's because of the geography that we are in, that all of this happens in these 2 months. Construction is happening around the year. But do we feel that? It's because of the geography that this...
I didn't feel it 10 years
No,
ago.
idea is not about just feeling it. Idea is an overall contribution. It's not about you feel it for the 2 months.
are you saying construction is not
a problem
contributing?
No, it is.
I mean, construction is contributing throughout the year. You're just feeling it in these 2 months.
More than cars.
Ground Zero got built where it is.
It is not the straw that is breaking the back. That's the only
whatever
difference.
number of stories, there was no scaffolding done there. It is also the geography of the place. When...
आप लेबर कॉन्ट्रैक्टर से काम नहीं करा सकते, मैंडेट कर दो ना. आप मैंडेट कर दो कि आपके कॉन्ट्रैक्टर की ये नॉर्म्स होने चाहिए. ट्रक आएगा, उसका टायर धुलेगा, पूरी स्कैफोल्डिंग, पूरी की पूरी शटरिंग लगेगी, चारों तरफ धूल बाहर नहीं निकल सकती. आपको क्लोज्ड एनवायरनमेंट पत्थर काटना है, पत्थर काटो, और उसके बाद एक्सट्रैक्टर लगाओ, एक्सट्रैक्ट करो. एंड क्या प्रॉब्लम है यार? कोई प्रॉब्लम ही नहीं है. टुडे द हाईएस्ट रियल एस्टेट, मतलब साउथ दिल्ली में 500 गज का कोठी का रेट मालूम है क्या हो गया? और उसमें लेबर रेट से कॉन्ट्रैक्टर से काम करा के बात कर रहे हो? कहीं पे भी आप कहीं की भी आप गणित कर लीजिए. What the point is कि अगर आपकी रियल एस्टेट इतनी महंगी है तो आपको अपने कॉन्ट्रैक्टर को, आपको अपने बिल्डर को, again the same thing that you're saying, na, make it car difficult, make it builder difficult, make the builder
I agree
bleed.
with Rudraksh.
Yeah.
Your cost of construction in South Delhi today, on an average, is about 14 to 15,000
₹1,000
square
exactly.
foot.
So,
A good construction with finishing,
yeah,
with interiors with finishing, people are spending 14 to 15,000 rupees a square foot. Are we saying that we can't put sprinklers in that much cost?
Absolutely, you
Easily
can. And it is happening. It is happening.
I'm shocked at the numbers, of course. 15,000 rupees.
These are still conservative numbers.
Yeah.
Construction cost.
You will be shocked. There's a
No.
numbers.
The finished project cost.
GK1, GK2, the housings or Friends Colony. 15,000 is a start.
यार मेरे out of syllabus है विवेक भाई ये क्वेश्चन मैं क्या करूँ यार बताओ मेरे को.
We'll take the audience question. Start with.
I'm also audience.
Vivek, you have a question?
I honestly have a question.
Pass on the mic to somebody else.
No, I didn't want to again, but
Can we put another table for Vivek out here? Yes, the gentleman there.
Yeah, there was some talk in the last conversation around driverless cars, and there were other various points made. I think in India we have this tendency of looking at the West and assuming that Western solutions are really the best, etc. Driverless cars will not work in India because driving is a real profession here. How many lakhs of people engage in driving as a profession, right? And with the chaos that we have in our cities, I don't think those cars can work. Secondly, some of the solutions of China or Europe need not necessarily apply to India because how people behave, our mindset, our demographics, our culture, it's all very, very different.
I'm sorry,
so my question is, yes, I'm coming to my question, sir.
Yeah.
You guys have talked a lot. Let me, yeah. So my question is...
We are privileged. We can sit here and talk.
Yes. We are all here to talk. That's all what we've been doing for years.
Yeah, sorry.
So my question is that why can't we as architects think about customized, localized, dedicated solutions, micro area based solutions, saying that, okay, if there is a problem in Chhatarpur metro station, OASIS did a very good design around that, but I can't reach the station because the last mile connectivity is not there, hence I am forced to take my car to go to Gurgaon. So can't we just localize the problem and say that, okay, there are these micro-based area. 70% of our population in Delhi is living in unauthorized colonies, urban villages, right? Urban villages are a completely different ball game, different from your GK, etc. That's 1% of the privileged population that you're talking about, sir. 99% don't operate out of GK, they operate out of elsewhere. You go into any of these urban villages, you will see the chaos there. Maddening construction, no bylaws, nothing is being followed, and that is what is contributing to the mayhem and the emergency that we have in the city. Unfortunately, we keep scratching the surface, that 1% of the problem. It's not the beautiful housing that ARCOP does where the country lives. That's very privileged section of the society. The country lives somewhere else. So we are not really addressing the problem. The problem is to look at the masses, look at the numbers, the big numbers that India has, and come up with customized solutions to that. Amsterdam is very different from India. The population, behaviors, people, culture, etc., that may not work in India. That's my point.
You've really taken me out of the syllabus now.
Good one.
So I think this emergency warrants a way more systemic approach. So I'm not too sure if all of us are so conscientious that we will go back and look at our localities and solve the problem. I think out here, what we are trying to do is, what I like about the conversation is it's about Delhi, pollution. Thankfully, FOAID has organized it and on its peak. So we cannot escape or we kind of put our eyes, close our eyes to it. So I think it's systemic. So we need to have systemic solutions. And of course, the one thing I agree is that it is about personal behavior. So if all of us can make that one change, I think a lot will change. So whether we are being the traffic or we are being the promoters of public usage or security and safety, I think it's a mindset we need to start moving off. And so there has to be systemic solutions to everything. They've got to be policies, they've got to be larger laws, fully policed, but laws need to happen first. They have to change, we need to be agile, we need to change. Society has moved on. We can't say 15, 20 years back the way things were, they're the same now. They aren't. So let's really embrace that change and make very serious commitments at every level. And I think this conversation, and in paucity of time, I think we need to look at what really can be done individually, but I think that solution is to be sought after. And I think apart from construction and traffic,
although I kind of disagree that, you should not be looking at examples from outside this country. Nobody is saying that we are looking at only the elitist areas or the elitist housings. Nobody is denying that there are urban villages out here. But how many of us are actually making an attempt? So there are few people who are sitting here and questioning this whole thing and starting a thought process. At least 10% of us would go back and think whether we want to take the metro or we want to take the car next time we want to buy a vegetable. The people that we're talking about, when you say that the non-elitist or people who are not discussing, how many of us would actually do the thing without a policy being implemented? And I go back to what Vivek was saying, policing is important. Policing is needed. Unless a certain law comes in, a majority of people do not like to follow it. Even today, the garbage gets burnt in a lot of urban villages, knowing the fact that there is pollution. Is there a law to that, to not burn the garbage? There is a law, but is that followed? That's the point here. So nobody is denying that, there are people who are discussing it here. Yes, you can call it an elitist platform, but somebody is discussing it. Somebody wants to find a solution for it. That's the point. Have you stopped anybody from throwing garbage when you go to an urban village? Personally, try it out.
Taking from Ankit's point about looking at the masses, I feel these urban villages, some of them, not all, work very well. If you have one barber shop, it is catering for that entire. So like what I'm trying to say, but they are not given the, infrastructure that is needed for them, like the sewerage and whatever. And we as, there is an ecosystem of the elite and the urban village where the economics work together and...
You are denying the aspirational value. Shahpur Jat 20 years ago did not have as many number of cars that it has today. Because this is an aspirational value. Urban village person sees that you're buying cars.
But do you want to change the network of Shahpur Jat to make it wider, to make it car-friendly?
That place could never take cars.
That's what I'm saying.
It's still increasing cars.
Even if people have aspirations or whatever, car is related to aspirational, but the people are thinking Mehroli mein, if people have a multi-level car parking at the entry. But I'm just saying
but
that
is that a solution?
Yes.
Is the question.
Yes.
To create a multi-level car parking outside Nizamuddin, outside Mehroli?
For the aspirational people, why not? For some of them. Yeah.
A symbiotic relationship.
Exactly.
That's
right. What I was trying to say.
But if Panchsheel was not there or if Saket was not there, would Khidki survive?
No.
No.
No. So basically, Saket is exploiting Khidki, and that is where the problem is.
Exactly.
I will not say exploiting.
Of course. मतलब मेरे हिसाब से सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम जो अब हो रही है अर्बन विलेजेस में
what is the point that we should not exploit?
So I don't have a solution to what I'm talking about.
What is the point?
What I'm just getting to the point that you were talking about a urban village being a better sustainable model because of its scale, because of its scale and a better community fabric being there. But what I'm trying to say that it exists, tax कम है, infrastructure कम है, density ज़्यादा है, वो इसलिए है क्योंकि ना सरकार ने उसको वहाँ बांध रखा है, क्योंकि जो बाकी वाली colonies हैं, उन colonies को support कर रही है.
Yes.
Right? I think, right. I understand because there is a symbiotic relationship. But I think it is also creating a massive divide.
I don't think
divide.
It is a massive divide, no?
I think
symbiosis is when two people work in concert.
No, I'll tell you.
Let
me explain this divide to you. Let me explain this. I don't know whether the fact is correct, but Delhi में ना 20,000 आदमी आ रहा है daily. 20,000 आदमी जो वोट नहीं देता है, वो दिल्ली आता है इमिग्रेंट से, ठीक है ना? उनको रहने के लिए जगह चाहिए, उनको सस्ती जगह चाहिए रहने के लिए, और वो दिल्ली में क्या कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है? या तो डेली वेजेस पे कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहा है, पानी कंज्यूम कर रहा है, शिट कर रहा है, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पे लोड बढ़ा रहा है. All that is happening. I think we also need to start thinking about immigration, because
immigration.
I mean, they're providing useful services at a cheap cost. You need them in the city, right?
Yeah, immigration even
you can't run your house without them.
यार मेरे को लगता है वही cheap cost वाला ही तो problem है. वो cheap cost वाला problem नहीं है.
Okay. That's a very elitist thought.
And they're consuming less resources. They're providing useful services.
They're
you can't run your house without them. Yeah. You would probably have 3 or 4 of them working in your house, right?
Well,
who all here would give up their homes in Sakets and Green Parks and GKs, go and live in these urban villages? Let's have a poll on that, and we will know who's being elitist.
That's not what I'm trying to explain.
Let's be. No. I'm supporting you. I'm saying let's be realistic about things. Okay. Yes. You cannot say that if he's talking about immigration being checked, and I think it's a very important point. How much can the city swell? We talk about Singapore. There is a bar. You can't just go and start living.
All
in Singapore.
cities of China have a bar.
Okay. China has. Okay. So you will have to do that. Now it is going to bring up questions of infrastructure. Can you create nodes which are away from Delhi and are easily commutable by rapid trains, etc., which is what the government is working on? Okay, sure. But at some point of time, you will have to look at what he's talking about. That you have to contain the numbers. The fundamental problem with this country, okay, which probably only one country, which our friend has been speaking about, China, has been able to solve despite the number, is the population. Rest, everything else, when you compare with India, you say, हमारी population आपको बॉस पता नहीं है. It's only China which has been able to handle that. So it's a very good model that you've been talking about. But numbers को कहीं आपको control करना पड़ेगा. Otherwise आप कितना infrastructure बना लोगे?
I mean, I'm not that familiar with urban bridge, but I don't think it's that different from a European city. If you purely look at a urban
Singapore
form.
Singapore has more density than Delhi. So
just look at the urban form of an inner city area of inside European city. Not many cars. G+3, G+4 walk up. People are walking around. Dense shops and residences all together. It's not that different, and it worked for all sections of society. It elites to others. So it's a slight difference in urban form. The difference is, our model today is only flat car. My private society. All of that stuff. That maybe we need to change.
I think Gurgaon is worse than Delhi.
Sujata, with the given time constraint that we have, and we would love to discuss this for a couple of hours more, because there were many more segments we were wanting to do, but I think the discussion is getting so much more heated, so much more interesting, that we can all soon after this continue. And I was hoping people would thrash things out. There's going to be like furniture thrown out here, which if we continue for another 1 hour might just happen also. Although I completely disagree with Sujata's point of saying build more multi-level car parks for urban villages, because we are hypocritical about that.
No, if you're making multi-level car parks for the elite,
we'll discuss it. We'll discuss it outside.
At least there should be some
to sum up,
parity.
I don't think there is a clear solution to any of this, but yes, there are a few points here. The point is that there is an elitist viewpoint that we always look at. We don't look at the ground reality when we're talking about things as an architect, and there are a lot of young architects sitting out here. What is important is to address the root cause of things. Population, yes, and I already hear a lot of Gen Z talking about they're not getting married and they're not going to have kids, which to me in a certain case is a positive move towards this country. On a lighter note, that somewhere people are thinking that population control is going to happen. That's the biggest problem. But policy making, some things, I think we need to get a little inconvenient when it comes down to it. Delhi people as such have become, I feel, more lazy and used to the convenience of everything at their home. And this phenomena has increased even more. I mean, I'm happy that people can order everything sitting in their houses, because that way at least we're reducing traffic. We would have covered the question of whether it is a good idea to work from home and how technology could have helped, but those topics we can take up in the next segment sometime. You have a point to make? One last point?
Could I just have one?
There are a lot of points to be made out here. I'm getting a lot of pressure to close this discussion.
Manish, I had a small point. Manish?
Yes.
The thing that came up was that, if you look at the cross-section of the society, if you look at the entire planet, it's the developed countries which which actually has the most amount of carbon footprint. So if you look, that's the whole discussion which is going on. So it is not actually the urban villages that are creating the pollution. It's actually the elitist or the I think the top 20% of the population which is actually creating the pollution. So the discussion actually got, I think, sidelined into a completely different thing.
Give him the mic.
कुछ भी समझ नहीं आया. But it doesn't matter. No, doesn't matter.
Last
close it. Let's take it outside. Let's take it outside.
Just a small point. I've been noticing you had the mic for the longest time. We'll just take his thought, because we've taken your thoughts. We'll take your thoughts, sir, but after that I'll have to really close. Yes, sir.
Sure. So I've been hearing this debate for a long time, and I just have a few points that I noted, and then one last question. So we've been discussing things of transport and construction, etc. I noted his point of looking at different areas for their own problems and then solving them. We have esteemed panelists here who have in their careers dealt with those kind of problems in their own capacity, where Mr. Sanjay said that, if someone talks, people are ready to listen. My question here is, if people are willing within the architectural community to look at their own areas only, right, we will be collectively able to solve a problem which is much larger instead of relying on the government to make the solution. So I propose that somebody from the panelists or the community who's senior to help us lead this change, help us understand where the people in their local communities can contribute, and then take this discussion forward, because I think that is the only way forward, because we have to identify the first step. We have not yet been able to identify what the first step to solving this problem is. And I think the first step to solving it is looking at the local communities and then solving it, the bigger picture.
We agree. We agree to that. I think I'll sum up this one-liner for everyone, from everyone, each one of our panelists. Just what your submission to the entire thing is, just as a one-liner, Sanjay,
I can start.
To sum up the whole conversation.
I think time to act.
Time to act. Fair enough.
Yeah, a lot of hope on the young, and so like Manish said, tech could be a possible way forward, but we need to really move.
I think architects are uniquely positioned to do something here, because architects are generalists by profession. We have to look at climate, construction, norms, clients' wives, clients' aunt, materials. So as generalists, we should balance out all these different things and weave a synthetic whole out of all of these things that doesn't look at only one factor. The problem with government is they try and look at only one factor and arrive at a solution.
So architects need to learn from the co-professionals like urban designers, traffic planners, when they have these large parcels, if they kind of design it, as an isolation, I think things...
So collaboration is the way forward, yes. And hopefully we'll go to a better future. Thank you. Thank you everyone, all the panelists. I would like to personally thank Sanjay, Sourabh, Samir and Sujata. I think we had a great discussion.